Tonight, you are not here in your own quiet room. Instead, you're seated at a long wooden table. Oil lamps flicker on the walls, casting soft shadows across silver platters. The air smells of warm bread, aged wine, and something faintly sweet. Maybe honey or roasted herbs. This is ancient Rome, and this is cena, the final meal of the day. But this isn't just food. It is performance. It is conversation. It is ritual. As the empire slept, Rome dined, and what they chose to eat before bed, what they believed about sleep, dreams, and even death reveals more than recipes. It tells us what they feared, what they craved, and what comfort looked like 2,000 years ago. So lie back, let the day fall away, and allow your thoughts to wander into marble halls, clay ovens, and candlelit feasts. The Romans are waiting, and dinner is just being served. In ancient Rome, the day began with barely a whisper, a light breakfast, and a crust of bread and a few dates, eaten quickly, almost without thought. Lunch prondem was more substantial but still modest. Leftovers, a bit of cheese, olives, or fruit. But cena was something else entirely. It was the meal that mattered. It was the one that lingered. It was where the day finally exhaled. For the working poor laborers, slaves, small shopkeepers, cena might be as simple as lentil stew with barley bread, some cooked onions, and maybe, if coin allowed, a splash of cheap wine. It was cooked in modest kitchens, often shared between multiple families, with smoke curling from clay chimneys and the occasional laughter of children drifting through the dusty courtyards. But for the wealth, cena was performance, a stage set with ivory-handled spoons, bronze trays, and bowls carved with scenes from myth. Guests reclined on cushioned couches selecti, arranged in a formal triclinium dining room. 3 couches for 3 sides of the table, the 4th left open for serving. Imagine being there. You rest on your left elbow, the right hand free to eat. Servants glide silently across the mosaic floor. Wine diluted with water and sometimes sweetened with honey is poured into delicate glass goblets. The meal begins not in haste, but with ceremony. Eggs, shellfish, olives, perhaps a salad of greens dressed with oil and vinegar, sprinkled lightly with garum, salty, fermented fish sauce that flavored nearly every Roman dish, a smell woven into memory. Then come the heavier dishes, mense secundae, roasted pork belly dusted with honey-glazed duck, or a stew of lentils, slow-cooked with leeks and wild herbs. Between courses, guests talk, not just about politics or trade, but philosophy, love, poetry. Sometimes music fills the air, a lyre, a flute, a soft voice singing in Greek. Slaves pass through often, pouring more wine, offering clean towels for hands, and fetching more dishes from the kitchen hearth. The final course, secunda mensa, was sweet. Figs soaked in red wine, dates stuffed with almonds, small cakes made with goat cheese, honey, and ground poppy seeds. All the while, oil lamps flicker on the walls. There are light wavers on painted frescoes, scenes of Bacchus and dancing satyrs, sea nymphs, riding dolphins, myths half-remembered in the flicker of flame. There is no sense of rush, no countdown to bedtime, only the slow winding down of a world that has eaten, spoken, and when at last the platters are cleared and the conversation fades to silence, some guests rise to leave, others drift to sleep right there, lulled by the warmth of the room, the fullness of the meal, and the rhythm of ancient comfort. Now let us linger a while longer, not in the dining room, but in the kitchen, where the more curious delicacies of Roman life were prepared. Among the array of common fare, beans and barley, cheeses and greens, there were stranger things too, foods that might, to modern tastes, feel unusual, and yet, to a Roman palate, they were not strange at all. They were simply comfort, luxury, bedtime indulgence. Imagine this, a clay jar nestled in a dark pantry, lined with straw and soft moss. Inside, small creatures plump dormice, bred not as pests, but as prized morsels for the table. These were delicacies, prepared with surprising care. The dormice were often fattened in special containers called then seasoned with herbs and stuffed with minced meat, pine nuts, and a drizzle of honey, roasted whole. They were served warm, their skin crisped, the filling aromatic with crushed pepper and savory leaves. To the Roman elite, this wasn't just a snack, it was a statement, a way to show refinement and wealth. To eat dormice before bed was not odd, but elegant. And there were sweets as well. Soft, dense cakes made with goat cheese and wheat flour, sweetened with boiled honey and sprinkled with sesame seed. They were often shaped into little crescent moons or symbols of fertility, a treat for the body, but also some believed a bomb for the soul. Figs soaked in spiced wine, dates stuffed with crushed almonds, apples roasted with cinnamon bark. The flavors were rich, but not overpowering. Sleep, after all, was near. Many of these nighttime snacks carried with them more than taste. They held meaning. Some foods were believed to invite peaceful dreams, others to awaken desire. A fig eaten before bed might stir thoughts of love. A sip of warm, herbed wine might ease an anxious heart. Roman authors like Pliny the Elder recorded all sorts of wisdom. Which foods soothed the stomach, which provoked dreams, which stirred visions or calmed the spirit. Even garlic, so pungent and plain, was sometimes steeped in milk and honey, a bedtime tonic, for those who feared the chill of the night or the shadows in their mind. Not all these beliefs were scientific, but they were comforting. And perhaps, for the Romans, that was enough. In quiet villas by the sea, in dim tenement kitchens along the tide, or in soldiers' camps far from home, these small, strange, sweet moments before sleep connected them all. So now, as you picture the flicker of a candle and the scent of honey drifting up from a clay plate, consider the Romans not as distant or strange, but as people like you, trying to rest, to be full, to feel safe as night drew in. Not all meals in ancient Rome were about pleasure. Some were about memory, some were about mourning, and some were meant not for the living at all. Imagine yourself in a quiet courtyard garden. The feast is over, the laughter has faded, and now, under the soft light of a waning moon, you find yourself among low stone tombs, simple, unadorned, except for one small offering table set beside the grave. This was the Parentalia. For 9 days in February, Romans visited the tombs of ancestors. They swept them clean, decorated them with garlands, and they brought food. The offerings were not grand. Small cups of wine, a scattering of beans or lentils, bread, sometimes dipped in milk. And in quieter corners of the city, children were taught to whisper the names of the dead, so that the spirits would not be forgotten, so that they would not grow restless. To a modern eye, it might seem somber, but to the Romans, it was deeply familiar. The line between the living and the dead was not so sharply drawn. They believed the dead lingered not as ghosts, but as silent watchers, and to ignore them, to forget their names, was to invite imbalance, bad dreams, bad luck, or worse. Some homes had small household a bite of cake, a splash of wine, little tokens of continuity, acknowledgments that the past lived on, quietly, in the present. Even before funerals, there were meals, a body laid out in the atrium, pale beneath a thin white cloth surrounded by flickering oil lamps. And in the next room, family members sat in silence, sharing a simple dish of eggs, bread, and perhaps a fig or two. It wasn't a celebration, but neither was it despair. It was a gesture of respect, of transition. To equal death lingered in the room was not morbid. It was human. It was Roman. And sometimes after burial, families returned to the tomb, not with tears, but with picnics. Yes, picnics among the dead. The tombs along the Appian Way were often fitted with benches or niches for this purpose. Families would gather, children laughing, grandparents pouring wine to share food in memory of those no longer there, to eat, to speak their names, to light a small lamp in their honor. It was believed that the spirits beneath might draw close and listen, might take comfort in the smell of bread, the warmth of company, the music of voices they once knew. So in Rome, even after death, the table was never truly empty. The meal before bed, for many, was also a meal of remembrance. And as you drift now gently into your own silence, know that the Romans would have understood. They would have lit a lamp for you, set aside a fig, and whispered your name into the dusk, even after the plates were cleared, and the last fig had been eaten. The night in ancient Rome was not always quiet. For a while many sought rest, others stirred, drawn to the mysteries, superstitions, and secret comforts that came alive beneath the cover of darkness. You might think of ancient Rome as a place of law, logic, and routine, and it was, by day, but by night, Rome was full of shadow. After dinner, some Romans turned to books, scrolls of poetry or philosophy, read aloud by lamplight. For others, it was music, the low murmur of a flute, a melody played softly enough to accompany falling asleep. In the wealthier homes, Night might bring private moments, a quiet bath before bed, a ritual prayer to household gods, a sip of warm wine laced with herbs to soothe the body. Many Romans believed in dreams, but more than that, they believed dreams could be messages from the gods, from the dead, from the future. And so, they prepared. Some laid laurel leaves beneath their pillows. Others recited incantations. One might rub a bit of saffron or rosemary into the skin to invite clarity in the dreams ahead. Sleep was not passive. It was part of life's rhythm, something to be shaped, guided, understood. But not all nights were restful. In tenement buildings in Sicily, where many Romans lived crowded together, the night was often filled with creaks, voices, the shuffle of feet across wooden floors. Without glass windows, the sounds of the city drifted in, vendors packing up their carts, animals settling in the streets, and the occasional laughter or quarrel from a neighboring room. Some found peace in midnight walks, especially in warmer months. They strolled the quieter side streets, lantern in hand, cloak drawn tight. They stopped by small shrines, or tossed a coin into a fountain, asking for protection or forgiveness. And some fewer, but still visited others, in whispers, in silk robes, in the hush of secrecy. Seduction, in Roman belief, was tied to food and night and ritual. A lover might bring a sweet cake or a vial of perfumed oil, murmured verses, tender gestures, a stolen hour before dawn. And as the lamps burned low and the fire cooled to embers, the city itself seemed to breathe. From the Palatine Hill to the banks of the Tiber, from noble villas to tiny attic rooms, Rome did not truly sleep. It rested, it waited, a civilization draped in linen and marble, whose nights were rich, with scent, with silence, with the soft rituals of letting go. And so, as you lie there, still, quiet, perhaps half dreaming already, know this: even the great empire, with all its conquests and coin, its roads and rulers, even Rome itself ended every day with something small, a fig, a prayer, a flickering light. And that, perhaps more than anything, is what makes them human. So now, dear listener, you've walked the dim corridors of the Roman night. You've sat beneath flickering candlelight, tasted honeyed cheese and wine-soaked fruit, watched strange rituals unfold beside tombs, and listened as the city murmured quietly to itself, long after the sun had set. You've seen that Rome, in all its grandeur, was not just a place of marble and might, but of habits and hungers, hopes and farewells, whispers and waiting. From the common man chewing bread beside his cot, to the noble woman slipping into silk to read her dreams, every Roman, in their own way, searched for the same thing you do now: rest, a moment of stillness, a place to pause. In the dark, the empire, for all its scale and sound, always ended its day in quiet, not with a fanfare, but with a low hiss of oil lamps being snuffed, the rustle of sheets, and the soft creak of a wooden bed frame beneath tired bones. So as your eyes grow heavier, and your breath settles into its evening rhythm, know this: the world you've wandered tonight is long gone. The dormice are no longer roasted, the tombs have fallen silent, the palaces are dust, but their nights, their rhythms, their need to eat, to remember, to love, and then to sleep, that remains. Sleep now, not as a Roman, but as one who knows they were once here. Candles lit, bread broken, eyes closing to the hush of the ancient world. Good night, and may your dreams be quiet, as Rome once was.